Ah, the cactus. The porcupine of the plant world. We all know cacti are cute and fuzzy and should never be cuddled. But how do they survive in the desert, under blistering conditions with no water? Our next guest, ecologist Jessie Rack, has the answer. Check it out.
Coming from the lush green hills of rainy Ireland, my only exposure to deserts was in cartoons, where they looked like dry, empty graveyards. But according to ecologist Dr. Jessie Rack, that's a poor illustration of reality. As a science educator at the University of Arizona, she spends her days in the Sonoran Desert studying how plants and animals interact with this environment.
I've just always really loved nature, and as soon as I learned that there was a way to, have a job and do something while basically just wandering around outside and teaching people about nature, that's what I wanted to do.
I met up with Dr. Rack at the Arizona Sonoran Desert Museum to learn more about how plants and animals have adapted to thrive in this arid climate. There are two types of adaptation these desert animals are going to demonstrate today. The first is called behavioral adaptation. Humans do these all the time, like how we stay inside when it rains or bundle up to go out in winter. One desert dweller digs these behavioral adaptations literally.
Is a kangaroo rat. They use this thing called a microclimate. So you can see this is like his container is a little fake burrow here.
Right.
So inside of the burrow down in the desert floor, it stays a pretty nice temperature. So often they'll stay down in their little microclimate and only come out maybe like an hour or two a night.
That means this little guy is nocturnal, another behavioral adaptation. The second type of adaptation is known as physiological adaptation. To understand it, Jessie introduces me to a Sonoran desert tortoise named Mallow.
Tortoises have a really great adaptation where they actually are able to store a ton of water inside their body. They store up to 40% of their weight in water in their bladder.
This physiological adaptation isn't a choice Mallow makes. It's hardwired into her system, and it's not her only one.
They also have this great system where they continuously can recirculate the water inside themselves to keep them alive, which is something we can't really replicate either.
It's not just animals who can adapt. Plants do it too.
So this one here is the saguaro cactus.
Wow.
So I know, look at how
It's so big.
it's funny because this is actually kind of a baby.
Saguaro cacti are a fundamental part of the ecosystem. They provide shelter for many desert animals, but they have an interesting way of sheltering themselves from the blazing sun.
Where does it look like there's the most spines on the whole body of the
I would
cactus?
say at the top of
Ding,
the
ding,
cactus.
ding, 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 ding. That is an adaptation to the sun. And so that's the growing tip of the cactus. And so it's trying to prevent the sun from burning it.
It's like when humans wear a layer of sunscreen or clothing to protect our skin from sunburn. But in the desert, layering up too much can lead to disaster.
If you have too many layers on, you're gonna overheat. The more air can reach your skin, the better you are at dumping heat. And you do kind of have to balance that with sun exposure because the sun is very harsh out here, and so you don't want it to be exposed too much because you can get really easily sunburned.
One desert animal who's a pro at cooling down, the coyote. What is their adaptation?
Yeah, so you see its big, like, furry coat there.
Yeah.
So one thing that they can do is when it gets really hot, they can actually shed layers, like maybe your pet dog or something. Also, like a dog, when it's really hot and they need to cool down, they pant. It's called evaporative cooling.
Human sweat works the same way. The liquid collects on your skin and the dry air around you evaporates it off your body, cooling you in the process. But coyote skin can't sweat, so they do it through their mouths. There's one last animal Jessie wants to show me. This desert predator combines almost every adaptation we've seen today into one winged package.
Okay, I have this really great animal for you to meet, and this is my friend Robin.
Hi, Jessie. Hi, Fig. This is Bo, a barn owl.
Like coyotes, owls don't sweat.
What they can do to get cool is what's called gular fluttering. So it's kind of like panting.
I wouldn't have known that owls could do that. And like the tortoises who recirculate water through their bodies to cool down, Bo has another physiological adaptation to help him beat the heat.
Owls' body temperature actually runs hotter than ours does, so they're probably like 104 to 107 degrees.
Wow.
I know, so they don't have to worry so much about getting overheated because it's
Naturally,
longer.
he's already a bit warmer.
Just like the kangaroo rat, most owls are nocturnal. And while Bo doesn't have a spiky hat, some desert owls have been known to rest in the shade of saguaro cacti. Now that I know the ins and outs of all these adaptations, Jessie and I are ready to take on the desert.
Not to sound too obvious, but it sure is hot out here.
Well, it's a dry heat.